News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KVNU.
KVNU News Time is 4:05. I'm Bill Walter with this news update brought to you by Cache Valley Pharmacy. Contagious COVID-19 variants from India have been identified in Utah, according to Dr. Brandon Webb, an infectious disease physician at Intermountain Healthcare. Webb told reporters today that right now they've been very few and far between. He said studies are underway to determine how effective the vaccines are against the new India variants. He said that there's a tremendous amount of attention being given to that within the scientific community. He said, we do know that the vaccines are very effective against the strains that are currently circulating in the U.S. that are dominant. New positive cases of coronavirus grew by 300 in Utah today, with 10 new cases in northern Utah. In 14 months of the pandemic, there have been 403,984 cases in Utah. At the same time, there have been 21,797 positive cases in Cache, Box Elder, and Rich counties. There have been 911 COVID-19 hospitalizations in northern Utah. The total number of patients considered recovered in the district, 21,439. The Utah Department of Health on Friday reported 10 new COVID-19 deaths, 9 of which occurred before April 21st. There have now been 2,289 coronavirus fatalities in Utah over the course of the pandemic. KVNU News Time is 4:06. KVNU weather for tonight. Mostly cloudy, chance of rain showers, scattered thunderstorms this evening, then mostly clear after midnight. And a little bit colder than this morning, mid-30s for the overnight low tonight. Then sunny to partly cloudy, nice day on Saturday, mid-60s, but 70% chance of rain showers on Sunday. Right now we have 55 degrees at KVNU. KVNU weather brought to you by U&I Furniture. They work hard to keep stocked up on what customers want: sectionals, bedroom sets, chairs. They have hundreds of chairs at U&I. Always a better buy at U&I, 28 West, 1st North, downtown Logan.
This is Phil with Cache Valley Pharmacy. We love being in Cache Valley and want to thank you for your support. Cache Valley Pharmacy features the best prices in the valley, and as always, free delivery. If you're in the market for prescriptions, check first with Cache Valley Pharmacy for the absolute best prices, especially on compounds and insulin. We've been doing pharmacy better than anyone else in the valley with free delivery valley-wide for the last 19 years. Cache Valley Pharmacy, the pharmacy delivery experts. Order your prescriptions online at cachevalleypharmacy.com.
KVNU News Time is 4:08. The price tag for Benson residents keeping a regional composting site out of their backyards will be up to $1.5 million for the city of Logan. Logan Environmental Director Isa Hamoud delivered that bad news to members of the city council during their regular meeting on Tuesday. City officials had been seeking county approval to rezone a city-owned 47-acre parcel of land at 1400 North and 3200 West in Benson from agricultural use to public infrastructure. After that idea was condemned by Benson residents and rejected by the Cache County Council, Hamoud explained that the composting site will now be located adjacent to the wastewater treatment plant west of the city along Valley View Highway SR 30. The revised plans call for the composting site to occupy just 6.8 acres of land for now. Within 20 years, he added, the city will need to double the capacity of the regional wastewater treatment plant. In anticipation of that expansion, the associated composting site will eventually need to expand to 20 acres, and that will require at least some mitigation of surrounding wetlands. Idaho Attorney General Lawrence Wasden is warning residents to be wary of scams by people claiming to raise money for the victims of that school shooting in eastern Idaho. 2 students and the school custodian were shot during the May 6th attack at Rigby Middle School, and all sustained non-life-threatening injuries. The Jefferson County Prosecuting Attorney's Office says a 6th grade girl has been charged. Her name has not been released. In a statement Thursday, Wasden said victims and their families should also be cautious if they receive solicitations about filing lawsuits. KVNU News Time is 4:10. For more details on these and other stories, visit CashValleyDaily.com.
Dave Ramsey from 6 till 9 on News Talk KVNU 102 FM and 610 AM.
Adams Wealth Advisors has a team covering all aspects of your financial life. Expect specific guidance from advisors that adhere to principles of honesty, professionalism, and integrity. Adams Wealth Advisors has over a decade of service, earning the trust of the individuals they proudly serve.
This is Craig Adams. At Adams Wealth Advisors, we are here to help you receive peace of mind, whether you've done a lot of planning or a little planning. Count on our team at Adams Wealth Advisors for honesty, professionalism, and integrity.
Visit AdamsWealthAdvisors.com. That's AdamsWealthAdvisors.com to schedule a time with an advisor today.
Okay, now, listen up. If you like a little variety in your life and you like to work outside, I have the job for you. Logan Extermination is looking for hardworking, motivated technicians to help them keep up with their booming business. This is a great paying job with full or part-time employment available, and your day is never the same. Pay is $13 to $15 per hour with paid training and certification. Call today, 752-8450. That's 435-752-8450. Logan Extermination is excited to add you to their family.
Hi, this is Gordon Deal. Monday on This Morning, America's First News. Party leaders are losing their ability to effectively anoint favored candidates in a primary ahead of next year's midterm elections. We'll explain why. Also, the real estate frenzy is overwhelming even small-town America. We'll have examples of battles in eastern Pennsylvania. And could trauma be lurking under your post-pandemic good mood? Monday on This Morning, America's First News. Monday morning from 4 to 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM. Your station for news, weather, and sports.
Hi, I'm Dr. Anita Chandra with today's tip for kids from the American Academy of Pediatrics. Helmets are important for every bike ride, no matter how short. Did you know helmets are also important to wear when skateboarding, inline skating, or riding a scooter? A helmet can protect against a skull fracture or other facial injuries. Look for a helmet that fits correctly and that's certified for safety. Make sure you and your child wear a helmet every time. For more, visit healthychildren.org or talk with your pediatrician.
Our most vulnerable veterans are isolated at hospitals. And during their greatest time of need, their loved ones can have little or no contact with them. Imagine having to shelter in place forever. Learn how you can help at healvets.org. Help Heal Veterans, with the support of citizens like you, is making things better together. Learn more at healvets.org. This message is furnished by Help Heal Veterans, a not-for-profit organization.
For the people.
We are waiting with bated breath for news from the Cash Republican Party meeting an executive committee tonight.
With Jason Williams.
And I'm really excited about this next segment. We have two guests here in studio. We're going to talk about something that we've talked about many times here on the show, but from a bit of a different angle.
Weekday afternoons from 4 till 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM.
Welcome to KVN News for the People, hour one of today's show, Friday, May 21st. I'm Jason Williams, Bill Walter here in the studio as well. Andy Morgan of AndyAtTheMovies.com coming up in hour two for the People movie show. And as you can tell from my voice, I'm still reacting to all the pollen in the air. It gets worse. When I saw the rain,
it was so windy yesterday.
Yeah, you combine wind, rain, cool temperatures, warm temperatures, nights in the high 40s, days in the 60s. It's just perfect if you are allergic to pollens, things like that. And so I'm sure I'm not alone in this, but it's still an interesting time. There's still concern out there about COVID-19 and the pandemic, so I feel I have to explain to people sometimes when I'm speaking in public Don't worry, I've been vaccinated. It's not COVID. My eyes feel like they have sandpaper in them. That's the tell.
No fever.
No fever. Just in general sound like I've been really ill. So I apologize for the panic I'm causing here.
Sound a little like Willie Nelson.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not that nasally.
It is a fun time of the year for people who have allergies. Fall is also entertaining in a similar way.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, but it's just been everything this week for those who suffer from bad allergies. And it's a combination, as you said, Bill, wind, rain, sunshine, cool temperatures, and warm temperatures alternating day and night. And it's just everything you need to get every pollinating plant out there just dumping it. Utah Pollen Counts, though, is actually sending out. Now, they don't send out warnings. It's not a public health warning or anything like that, but they do at, this is intermountainallergy.com is the website, and it's where the data comes from for Utah Pollen Count, which is a state website where you can go to look at this. Now, there are some actual scientific reasons that this data is monitored, and it has a lot to do with agricultural studies. It also has a lot to do with, these days, climate change research, things like that, and just general meteorology. Pollens and when they release and how much they're releasing can actually tell scientists a lot about what's happening in a broader scale with weather, with climate, with growing seasons and things like that. So if you're, like me, experiencing some really fun symptoms right now, it's most likely oak. Oak is the highest right now here in Utah. And in fact, oak has crossed the high threshold to very high. Right behind that, mulberry, sycamore, and maple and box elder trees in the medium to high range. And right now, grass and birch, which I know many people out there have an awful experience with, also cedar and juniper, they're actually still in the low category. So those are still to come, something to look forward to and celebrate. But check this website out because it's interesting to see the trends on pollen, how things come and go, basically, and then translate that through, as the Intermountain Allergy and Asthma Organization does, into data that's then used, compiled, and, like I say, put to application in research. And the USU Climate Center does a lot of this, and they have some great stuff on their site as well. What they're showing, this is really interesting to me, Bill, because so I wouldn't say that they can predict bad drought years, because usually it's known already by the time you start seeing a lot of these pollen counts skyrocket. But pollen is actually one of the indicators of a drought year. And it has a lot to do, and I don't claim to understand this fully, has a lot to do with the timing of certain pollens. There are certain oak, for example, that's, again, in the very high category right now. Oak, the trees behave differently in dry springs versus really wet springs. Same with cedar and juniper, grass in general, maple and box elder.
Yeah, you wouldn't think it would produce as much pollen in a bad drought.
My understanding, and again, I might be getting this wrong, my understanding is that the drier spring is, the worse the pollen gets with certain plants. It triggers a sort of survival mode. They panic. They're like, oh, it might be a very dry summer. I'm going to do everything I can to survive and procreate, which I don't know if plants call it that. They don't talk, as far as we know. But, yeah, it's in certain plants, a very dry spring, and even worse, a dry spring followed or following a very dry winter, which we had. That actually triggers a very early and intense pollen release, which the bright side of that is it kind of the whole bad allergy season ends a little sooner because you have more of these pollen-producing plants that generally trigger a human's allergies releasing in a shorter period of time. So it burns out faster, but it's more intense while it's happening. So I thought that was interesting. The good old boys and girls at the Farmer's Almanac also write about this. They actually take it a step further and tell some stories. This is an interesting read. If you've never had a chance, find some time to just go through the Farmer's Almanac, which is also online now.
Yeah, I have it in my nightstand, in my top drawer in my nightstand. I just haven't really looked at it a whole lot. I need to, because
it's fun to just flip to a random spot and just read.
All sorts of cool stuff.
Oh, yeah. They in one of the latest versions, I think this has been in there since about 2010, so it's not a new thing, but they tell stories of how Native Americans would actually. So Native Americans, I'm just here complaining about my itchy eyes and my froggy voice and the cough that sometimes comes with constantly draining sinuses. And Native Americans, though, this was they certain people would react worse to, always. Some people react worse to allergens. Native Americans actually saw this as communication from a higher power, basically letting you know what type of a growing season it was going to be. In fact, oftentimes, if the whole tribe was scratching their eyes and coughing in the spring, they would take that as a sign that maybe they needed to go a bit further north before, if they had the option, before planting. So I thought that was kind of cool that there was actually, for a lot of indigenous tribes, there was actually a usefulness to this irritating allergy season that is just something for me to complain about. But they actually used it as a tool sometimes before planting their crops. So check it out. I've put a link to that section of the Farmer's Almanac on our Facebook page at facebook.com/KVNUFTP. Again, coming up, the For the People movie show with Andy Morgan of AndyAtTheMovies.com. High school graduation schedules are out. You can actually read them now at CacheValleyDaily.com. We'll talk a little bit about how all schools in the Cache and Logan districts are handling these this year, still being careful, but at the same time acknowledging that it doesn't have to be as virtual as it was last year. So we'll talk about that in a bit as well, and what Governor Spencer Cox had to say responding to a question. He was talking about drought, and the question was, how bad is it, really? He gave his answer. There were some follow-up questions. One of those follow-up questions is, are there any discussions already about a complete statewide fireworks ban? And the answer surprised a lot of people. We'll get to it right after this.
I'm Dr. Red in Cache Valley. Some of my patients here have questions about the COVID-19 vaccine. The vaccines were developed quickly and safely because they cut red tape, not corners. The vaccines are extremely effective and will protect you and your loved ones. More than 1 million Utahns have been vaccinated, and I encourage you to get the vaccine too. Talk to your doctor if you have any questions.
It's true. Many of us spend more time thinking about what's for dinner than thinking about retirement. But if you think your retirement needs deserve more attention, we agree, and we like to help. We're Edward Jones. Together, we can give you long-term retirement strategy the attention it deserves. Contact your local Edward Jones financial advisor to get started today. Visit edwardjones.com or stop by your local Edward Jones office. Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Member SIPC.
Here's Chad, the lawn doctor, with a tip for your lawn.
Just a couple tips for this summer for a healthier lawn. Raise your lawnmower blade a notch or two. Longer grass helps conserve water and fight against stress. Double check your sprinkler coverage and watering times. Then call the lawn doctor to put down a grub preventative and to try our popular new 2-service soil enrichment program.
Fertilizer, weed, and pest control. Call the Lawn Doctor at 753-LAWN or go to LawnDoctorCacheValley.com.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. A bunch of different stories to get to here. We're just going to try and run through as much news as we can this hour. We've got some news of big grants, I'm talking big, coming to northern Utah through an outdoor project granting process. Some bad news. Well, it's good news and bad news on the unemployment front here in Cache Valley. Good news is still one of the lowest in the state. Bad news, no longer the lowest in the state. Another county beat us, but we'll talk about why and a little bit of what's behind that. It doesn't mean Cache County's economy is going south. It just means that in other areas, some other things happened that for this specific recession, they weathered just a bit better than we did even, and we were weathering it pretty well here in the state. We'll talk about that in a bit. Before we get to any of that, though, it rained a bit today, just enough to, I'm looking through the window here, I'm looking at my windshield, just enough to make it ugly, make a mess. Not enough to really soak anything. We did get some decent rain, though, recently. I don't remember what the totals were on that, but I know it greened everything up quite a bit around the valley. And the forecast is, there's a chance of thunderstorms and showers for a while, I think, into tomorrow. Is that right, Bill?
Let's see. Yeah. Well, yeah, it's kind of weird because showers today, nice tomorrow, showers Sunday, slight chance on Monday. So every other day.
Extending through. This is, I think, leading myself included, a lot of us to feel like the fire danger here in northern Utah is not that bad yet. And it isn't yet. If you look at the state's monitoring systems, if you look at some of the reports from officials here in northern Utah, there's no big red flag warning. There's no burn restriction. Well, I mean, there are some burn restrictions that are always in place. And, of course, if you're going to burn while you're out camping or what have you in the canyons, only burn in an improved campground. That's a general rule to avoid wildfires. But the drying out is happening. The rain can be a little deceptive, especially if it's coming regularly. But the fact is we're not getting enough of it to stop the continual drying out of the fuel. The only thing working in our favor here in northern Utah, from what I've been told, is that because it was such a dry winter in spring, there's slightly less fuel than there would be had we had a wet. I mean, we've had some wildfire seasons where we had a very wet spring, grass out there 4 or 5 feet high along the roadsides and through the canyons and in the meadows up there. And then the water just switches off. End of June, 1st of July, dries out through July, and then August and September, everything's on fire every 5 minutes. So that same thing is possible this year, just not for those same reasons. It's not that there is going to be an overabundance of fuel, but there's plenty of fuel out there. It's going to be drying out very quickly, even here in northern Utah. The southern third of the state is currently under a red flag warning due to forecasts of high winds tonight into tomorrow and also the general dry conditions out there. So wildfire season is officially begun. On top of that, water managers, water conservancy boards, the state, Governor Cox spoke a bit about this yesterday. We'll get to his comments in a minute. Everyone's looking at this and saying they're looking at the reservoirs. They're saying there's just not enough water. Governor Cox yesterday said he works on a farm. His family runs a farm. By the way, he drives 90 minutes each day to the Capitol. When he has,
really?
Yeah, he did that as lieutenant governor. He's continuing to do it as governor. My understanding is he spends the week now as governor there, and so it's not every day anymore, but he heads home on the weekends.
So he's in the governor's mansion, I guess, during the week.
He's got a new place to stay there in Salt Lake after being elected.
New digs.
But yeah, the family is staying down there on the farm, which I think is in Gunnison. I'm not sure, somewhere around that area. Anyway, he spoke about this yesterday. He said that they're already operating the farm as if the way they would normally be operating the farm in an average summer, end of July, early August. So they're already restricting water in agriculture the way they would be, towards starting the latter half of summer. So, and it's, May. So that gives you one indication of how dry this summer is going to be. And so that raises both the issue of water and conserving it and making sure we stretch it through the summer and into next if we have to, because droughts can sometimes be a multi-year thing. On top of that, the drier things are, of course, you have the increased wildfire danger. All of this combining into, again, the bottom third of the state right now in a red flag warning situation, which means restrictions on campfires outside of covered and improved improved campsites in most areas. Even some of those are under no fire restrictions at this point. There are already water restrictions in place in both Washington and Grand County, or water water use recommendations, I guess you'd call them, where they're saying we're not going to restrict you yet, but we're recommending you only water twice a week down there in the southern part of the state. I think in Washington County, they're actually up to 3 times a week. Here in northern Utah, the recommendation is still just once a week, and that actually comes from USU Extension saying, once a week is all you really need to keep things green here in Cache Valley. I do see some people out there that are just throwing caution to the wind when it comes to our water supply. Got a neighbor watering every day almost. Some are going to do it. It's always the case. But for those of you out there being more conscientious, if you can keep it to just once a week right now, you're not going to hurt anything as far as your flower beds and your lawn or your trees, and it's all that's necessary right now. And we might have to make a little bit of water stretch for quite a while. And as Governor Cox said repeatedly yesterday, a lot of it's up to the weather. We could see this rarest of thing, a very wet July come along, at which point the concern over drought goes away a little bit. And
hopefully that comes with some good thunderstorms.
Yeah. Other than if we have a really wet July, then, of course, the fuel grows taller out there in the wildlands, and then that amps up the concern over wildfire. So there's just no clean break on any of this. But yesterday, during the governor's monthly news conference, Governor Spencer Cox, towards the end of the conference, he spent most of the day on what you heard on the show yesterday, highlights from the news conference on the really strange, extraordinary session lawmakers called themselves into after the governor's special session. He spoke quite a bit about the pandemic, vaccination rates, and more. Towards the end, though, he was asked a question by Ben Winslow, Fox 13. Simple question. It said, we've been hearing a lot about drought. We haven't seen water restrictions yet. There's also great concern over wildfire and things being really dry this summer. The question for Mr. Winslow was, how bad is it?
At this point, you're starting to get data. We're working with the local water districts, and that's where all of those decisions are made. And let me just state unequivocally, guys, it's really bad. It's as bad as it's been. We need everyone in the state to understand right now that we're heading into one of the worst drought and potentially worst fire seasons that we've seen, and we've seen some bad ones. And so it's going to take personal responsibility. But those more than that, there have already been cutbacks. I mean, on my farm, we're limited now like we normally are in July or August. So we started out with those limitations. We're already have limitations on watering in our yards, and we need everybody to be especially cautious. If you're going camping with a trailer, check your chains. Make sure you're not dragging chains. If you're going out to shoot, make sure you're in an area that is where shooting is allowed, that there isn't any potential for sparking that would cause fires, and certainly open burning and campfires, those types of things. Check the restrictions before you go, and of course we're not even to fireworks season yet. So we'll be watching all of those things. Now, how bad it gets, Ben, really depends on the weather. That's out of our control. We've had some rainstorms in different places. We're hopeful that those will keep going. All of that being said, I met with the Speaker and the President and sat down with our team this week, and we are going to be working and putting resources behind a significant conservation push. That's not just for this year. This is a long-term conservation push. We know that as the fastest growing state in the nation, that we're going to have to develop new water resources, and we will be proposing and looking at new water resources, but also significant changes in the way we develop and the way we're careful with water and the use of water. So, I could envision a time soon where new developments, we would be eliminating park strips and looking at xeriscaping much more. There's so much more that we can do here in the state of Utah.
We have a lot of neighbors we see that are watering every day of the week. We've got suggested restrictions. Do you see mandatory restrictions coming?
Yeah, I do. Those mandatory restrictions will happen by water district, and they monitor the resources that are available and what it looks like. So it's going to be different in every part of the state. There are already parts of the state that have mandatory restrictions. But again, I would encourage everyone to, most people overwater. And if you go to, there are several, I don't have them off the top of my head, but we just Google, Utah water, and what you'll see is Utah State has some great pieces on their website. We have them for different water districts at the state level, and you can tell how often you should be watering your lawn. For much of the state, it's still just once a week. In some parts of the state, it's 3 times a week, but most of us water way too much, and that's actually not healthy for your lawn.
Any plans for fireworks restrictions?
We'll look at those as they get closer. We would work closely with the legislature before we implement any of those. But again, it really depends on what the rain situation looks like leading up to fireworks season.
Okay, and we are out of time.
That was just a bit from the very end of Governor Cox's monthly news conference yesterday. He was asked for a lot of clarification today, because if you heard there, his answer to, are we going to see a statewide fireworks ban? Is there any talk of that kind of thing? His answer was a little vague. He said, if there is, of course, we'll work with the legislature, we'll come up with something. So he was kind of pestered today by members of the media, phone calls, emails, and more, including one from me, asking for clarification. His staff finally got back to all of us and said, they were very blunt. They said a statewide fireworks ban is definitely something that is on the table. So that's how bad it's going to be. 753-5868. We'll be back after these headlines with KVN News for the People.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 4:36. I'm Bill Walter, by the way, and the news is brought to you by Mount Logan Laundry. Water levels at Utah's reservoirs are lower than normal after a bad year for snowpack. And as we just heard about, a Governor Cox warning severe drought conditions could trigger water and fire restrictions and a possible ban on fireworks this year. Cox said at his monthly news conference on PBS, the state residents need to understand this could be one of the worst stretches of drought in a long time. The poor snowpack this winter has left Utah's reservoirs with expanding beaches and receding lakes. At the popular Pineview Reservoir, water levels are about 18 feet below normal. 10 new cases of coronavirus reported in the Bear River Health District since yesterday. The Navajo Nation on Thursday reported four new confirmed COVID-19 cases, but no additional deaths. Tribal health officials say the latest figures push the total number of cases since the pandemic began more than a year ago to 30,751 on the vast reservation that covers parts of Utah, Arizona, and New Mexico. The known death toll remained at 1,297. Navajo Nation President Jonathan Nez says more than half of the reservation's adult population has been vaccinated. And the Ada County Prosecutor's Office has received online criticism after promoting its services in honor of Crime Victims' Rights Week last month with a post on Twitter where the thin blue line flag was visible in the background. The tweet included a link to a blog post that highlighted victim witness coordinators who work to make victims feel empowered. The Idaho Statesman reported that the ACLU of Idaho and others questioned if the prosecutors also served police violence victims. The office said in a statement that it did not intend to take any position other than to highlight the work of those who support crime victims. KVNU News Time is 4:38.
Make laundry a snap with the large load washers and dryers at Mount Logan Laundry. Rather than 8 to 10 loads at home, get the job done in 1 or 2 with their 55 or 80-pound washers and 80-pound dryers that are perfect for sleeping bags, comforters, and other big items. Mount Logan Laundry has free Wi-Fi and drop-off service, plus they're open until midnight. Mount Logan Laundry really is the cleanest spot in town. Find them at 5th East and 9th North in Logan or in Brigham City on the corner of 1st East and 7th South.
KVNU weather tonight, mostly cloudy and a chance of rain showers and scattered thunderstorms this evening, then mostly clear after midnight, low in the mid-30s. Southeast winds 10 to 20 miles an hour, chance of precipitation at 40%. And then sunny to partly cloudy tomorrow, nice day on Saturday, mid-60s. And then a 50% chance of rain showers by Saturday night, 70% chance of rain showers and scattered thunderstorms on Sunday, especially in the afternoon, high temperature in the upper 50s. It's 55 right now at KVNU. KVNU weather brought to you by Cache Valley Pharmacy. They've been doing pharmacy better than anyone else in the valley with free delivery valley-wide for the last 19 years. Cache Valley Pharmacy, the pharmacy delivery experts. Order your prescription online at cachevalleypharmacy.com. For more details on these and other stories, visit cachevalleydaily.com.
Hi, this is Dr. Monty Carlson from Hyde Park Dental. I have some very exciting news. Dr. Brad Bills and I are going to partner to help make Hyde Park Dental one of the premier dental practices in Cache Valley. Dr. Bills will bring his experience in many areas to Hyde Park Dental. He loves treating children and provides comfortable, pain-free dentistry to everybody. I'm thrilled to have Dr. Bills at Hyde Park Dental. I know you will come to love and appreciate him as I do.
Hi, this is Dr. Brad Bills. I am as excited as Dr. Carlson to be joining forces. Like Dr. Carlson, I have practiced dentistry for over 30 years in the Valley and love helping my patients be healthy and have fantastic smiles. I also love being able to offer laser dentistry. Treatment with a laser is fast, pain-free, and often eliminates the need for a shot and no numb mouth. The excellent care you have received through Dr. Carlson and myself will continue with even more fantastic services and care. Call us today at Hyde Park Dental to schedule an appointment. Dr. Carlson and I are excited to see you.
Hi, this is James Stevens with White Pine Funeral Services. At White Pine, we value compassion, integrity, and service. We are committed to serving you and treating your family as our family. We will be here when you need us most, to listen, to help, and to provide exactly what your circumstances require. At White Pine, we promise to dedicate our time and attention to you and your family. We invite you to come by and meet us. We're confident you'll feel a difference.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. It is, again, a big week in the news, so we're just going to keep churning through it. If you want to interrupt, weigh in, share your thoughts, anything of that, 753-5868. This is CacheValleyDaily.com. You can read this. Associated Press putting out a lot of stuff on this yesterday, and the reaction, I just kind of looked around online to see how how the reaction is being, how it's going online in Oregon and in Idaho. The story basically is 5 counties in eastern Oregon that want to secede from Oregon and join Idaho. These counties, now, of course, when you say 5 counties, it doesn't mean every single person in the county, but they did, in at least one of these counties, they ran an initiative to get signatures, and they got quite a few signatures on this, and it was enough to approve it through the county's stated ballot initiative process. So they were able to actually get this up to a vote, which I'm not sure when that will happen, or when that happened. Just last week, actually, the week before, and then last week was when the results came. And 5 counties, now 22 counties in Oregon, basically the entire, everything but the coast and Portland.
So basically Eugene on up to Portland.
That's right.
I guess.
That western top corner which also is where the majority of the population of the state happens to be. These outlying counties are not very populous at all. And so they want to leave Oregon and go to Idaho because they say Idaho's conservative red state politics would better represent them. Now, of course, something like this is going to have to take, you'd have to get the legislature of Oregon to agree to it in a vote. You'd have to get the legislature of Idaho to agree to it in a vote. And you'd have to get Congress to approve it in order to move the boundaries of a state. But it can happen. There's a process for it. The proposal seeks to call this new state Greater Idaho. It would be huge. Basically,
I looked at the map. Would it rival Texas?
It's close. Yeah, it's close. Texas would still be bigger, but just barely.
Not population-wise, of course, but land-wise. Yeah.
No, not population-wise. In fact, this wouldn't actually add many people to Idaho's population totals. Well, I mean, quite a few, actually, but not what you'd think when you see the map of how much of Oregon would be assumed into Idaho at that point. But what it would do is do away with a lot of, so here's the irony of this, is these counties want to leave, but when it comes to the state of Oregon's taxes, they are very dependent on this area of Oregon they don't want to be a part of anymore. The more, it's not really blue, it's more purple in Oregon politically. So the purple area of the state, that upper left corner, is where most of the people live. So that's where most of the tax revenue is coming from. And that's what's funding the state, including roads built by these counties that want to leave. So Idaho lawmakers who have followed this and responded are saying, this is something, if people are going to seriously talk about this, we need to talk about how this is going to be funded. Because Idaho doesn't actually have big baskets of cash sitting around in order to fund roads and infrastructure and schools and things like that in this new gigantic state. So how would that affect existing Idaho residents as far as tax rates go? Who knows? I do know one economist said this would make Oregon the richest state in the country because you would take all of that revenue from all the people that live in that area between Eugene and Portland, basically, and on out to Bend. It would take most of the state's tax revenue and make it available to one of the smallest states in the West. Now, there are a few New England states that are smaller geographically, but this would definitely be the smallest state in the West at this point.
It'd be kind of like New Jersey.
Roughly about
land-wise.
That size. And I'm not sure if it would be comparable in population. I know New Jersey's pretty crowded. I don't think Oregon's there yet, even in that more populated Eugene to Portland area. But there's a lot of people there. And so that portion of the state, Oregon, if the rest of these counties left and became part of Greater Idaho, Idaho would become the poorest state in the West, and Oregon would become the wealthiest state in the West, at least as far as how much money they had to throw around based on tax revenue collection. So, ironically, these counties leaving Oregon and going to Idaho would mean tax hikes for everyone in Greater Idaho to pay for things, and probably tax reduction in small little remaining Oregon because they wouldn't need to collect as much to run the business of a small state. So some lawmakers in Oregon have said, we'll call your bluff. Go ahead. Become part of Greater Idaho. If you can get the legislature to sign off on it, if you can get the U.S. Congress to sign off on it, we won't oppose you. We'll vote for it. Now, of course, they're joking because this is never going to happen. But some lawmakers in Oregon have said, all right, let's do it. Show us how you're going to pay for things. No response yet from the groups behind the Greater Idaho push. But again, it is official. 5 eastern Oregon counties voted last week. The results came in to support consideration of becoming part of Idaho. The counties were Baker, Grant, Lake, Malheur, and Sherman.
I've been to Baker City. It's a beautiful town, right there on I-84.
Yeah, it's a really cool area. But If you've ever driven through eastern Oregon, it is not crowded.
Yeah.
To say the least.
It's pretty desolate, especially as you get, if you're headed east and you're getting close to the Idaho border. It's,
Yeah, that's
pretty deserty.
If you want to check this out, this is a serious thing. They got this on a ballot, and they had votes in the counties. And this has happened before. Previous years, 2 counties, Union and Jefferson counties in Oregon, had voted this way as well. And it didn't really go anywhere, but 5 more counties joining them. So a total of 7 now. And I think there's close to 31, 32 counties in Oregon. The grassroots group behind this is called Move Oregon's Border for a Greater Idaho. And you can check them out. I've posted a link to their website on our Facebook page. And the group, when asked, okay, what happens next? Well, they're hoping that this creates some political pressure from these county initiative votes to lead to that will lead to negotiations between Oregon and Idaho to move the border and put 22 of Oregon's 36 counties in Idaho. It's never going to happen, but it's going to be an interesting back and forth to see play out. I think people on a lot of different sides of a lot of different state policy issues are going to get a rude awakening on how a lot of this works. And I think it's going to come first when Idaho says, yeah, we don't want you. We're stretched pretty thin already. If we have to pay for your roads too,
they'd have to have 3.
Taxes are going to have to go up.
They'd have to have 3 state fairs. I mean, they already have 2.
Yeah, they already
just
have
because
2.
everything is so stretched out.
That's right.
Not interconnected.
By the way, I'm an East Idaho State Fair snob. It's much better.
Where's the other one held? In Boise?
Yeah.
Is it Boise? Oh, okay.
Yeah, the other and they for a long time tried to call themselves just the State Fair, the uppity. Yeah, they called themselves the State Fair, and then there was the East Idaho State Fair. East Idaho State Fair, far more fun. So don't bother yourself with the Boise area State Fair. So we'll see where this all goes. Story about this again at CashValleyDaily.com. 5 Oregon counties vote to consider move into something that would be called Greater Idaho and would make it the largest state in the West, and at the same time, Oregon the smallest state in the West, and nobody knows how this all could actually happen. There's a process for it, though. Again, if both state legislatures sign off on it and Congress approves it, the boundaries of the state could be moved. I doubt it's going to happen. Check it out, though. It's a cool map to look at, if nothing else. A link to that on our Facebook page from CashValleyDaily.com, and we'll be back right after this.
Do you have a son or daughter who's in high school, or maybe they're attending a university, college, or trade school? What if they decided to start a business right here in Cache Valley? Wouldn't that be cool? Would you shop at their business or use their services? You'd probably tell everyone you know to shop there. Hey, you might even wear a sandwich board or tattoo their business logo on your forehead. Did you know when you and your family shop at locally owned businesses, every dollar you spend returns an average of 300% more money to our community, compared to just 13.6% for big chains, or next to 0 if you shop those companies online. Shopping locally creates jobs for you, your neighbor, your family, and it creates tax revenue for our community, parks, police, roads. But don't wait for your son or daughter to start a business. Support local business today. And when your son or daughter opens their business, we'll support them too. See how you can help at CashValleyMediaGroup.com.
If you're in charge of hiring a company for commercial janitorial services for your building, call American Maintenance. For reliable cleaning of your business, American Maintenance is your simple solution. Curb-to-curb services, American Maintenance has you covered. For commercial janitorial services, American Maintenance. Call 512-0014. That's 512-0014.
Bring back what you've been missing. Bring back Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology.
Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology is Cache Valley's most trusted name in hearing aid technology. Schedule a free consultation with Dr. Paul Danes by calling 753-HEAR or visit CacheHearing.com.
Bring back what you've been missing. Bring back Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology.
If
If you are looking to build or remodel, go with a company who works with the top custom builders in northern Utah. Chim Chimney offers an array of units from fireplace extraordinaire, including the highest heat output options if you want significant heating potential. Or you can go with the entry-level Pro Builder series. Whatever model you choose, Chim Chimney will work alongside you from planning to installation to move-in ready. That's Chim Chimney in Logan and Brigham City. We sell, service, and install Low-Pi. Visit us at chimchimney.com.
Every Saturday morning at 9, you get information to prepare you with retirement solutions for the journey ahead. It's Smart Money Ascent with Clayton Alexander of Teton Wealth Group.
How do we solve that number one fear or that number one concern? Make sure you never run out of money.
And Teton Wealth Group's Ethan Miller.
Then, when you leave Teton, when you leave our offices, you're going to have a plan that you're both excited about.
It's where your retirement questions are answered. Smart Money Ascent, Saturday mornings at 9 on News Talk KVNU, 102 FM and 610 AM.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Good choice, Bill. Good choice. Oh, by the way, sorry about not introducing you at the bottom of the hour for the news. It's my allergies.
Okay.
This is my go-to excuse for everything.
I'll give you a pass then. Okay.
I can't concentrate. But for some reason, I introduced, we're going to the news with KVN News for the People, which you're currently listening to.
I should have said, thank you, Jason. This is For the People with KVNU News.
Well, and I feel so bad because yesterday, Craig Hislop joining us for that update on the USU Conservation Corps, and I followed through on his demand that I refer to him as Mr. Hislop.
Yeah.
And so to follow through on that and then not even introduce you today,
Well, Craig is still smiling, I'm sure.
I hope so. Man, it's going to be a nice weekend, I think, weather-wise. But just one more reminder for everybody out there, if you're headed out into the hills, fireplaces in improved campgrounds only. And even though things aren't as bad as they are in southern Utah, there's still a lot of fuel out there, and we really don't need to be kicking off wildfire season here in Cache Valley this early. So be careful out there. Next week, we're actually going to talk a little bit about this with a guest. I don't know. So if you and your family are the type who have been here in Cache Valley a long time and you have maybe good memories of heading up the canyon, maybe just once a year for some sort of family reunion type thing, maybe it's more often than that with tents, house trailers, camper trucks, and more. And maybe this is a regular thing that you've done or something that you've done, at least a couple of times a summer. You've probably noticed that it's getting a little more competitive out there for campsites. There have been some expansions, but also some upgrades in camping areas that have led to their, for the sake of the river and the ecology of the area, the campsites forced restrictions on number of people that can camp in a certain area just by their physical design. That was on purpose, but then you also see a lot of camping areas that are being upgraded and becoming more accessible for people. Every family, I think, too, has their, if they're a regular camping family, they have their secret spot, maybe some private land, maybe some place that you're given a key to a gate where you can go. Either way, if you've been up in the hills, and I classify this as any time you leave pavement. So if you're headed up the canyon and at any point you make a turn off the main highway and at a certain point the pavement ends, you're getting to the area that I'm talking about here. It's getting pretty crowded out there. And like I say, more competitive for campsites. This is before all of the growth coming to Cache Valley is even here. So we're going to talk a little bit about this next week with wildlife managers who are going to join us to kind of lay out their conversations with the Department of Natural Resources, counties, cities, state legislative representatives, and more, trying to get ahead of this a little bit to say, look, outdoor recreation is what makes living here great, and we need to make sure that it's preserved, and part of preserving that is also preserving the outdoors. If it's just recreation, It's just, I mean, why not just be in a paved parking lot? The outdoors are part of the whole outdoor recreation equation, right? So they need to be protected too. So how can all this be managed? As the growth comes to Utah, to Cache Valley, how can we make it sustainable for this many people to head into the mountains, up to the rivers and more on the weekends, and at the same time make sure there are still beautiful wild areas, clean rivers, and places that people want to recreate in the first place? This is going to be a unique challenge. The Utah Department of Natural Resources says that, this is a challenge they were already running into. The one thing that they know for sure, absolutely for sure, is that to keep outdoor recreation alive in most places in Utah, the state is going to need to start investing in it big time to get ahead of the coming population. So what exactly they're talking about, where would that money go, and how are those conversations going when it comes to getting outdoors in Utah as more and more people choose to live here? That's coming up next week on the show. In just a few minutes, though, we'll put the serious news aside, step into the world of movies and entertainment with Andy Morgan of Andy at themovies.com and the For the People movie show right after this here on KVNU Logan.